Right, folks, I'm going to continue on with what I was doing with Ready Break, straight after filming the bit I've done on Ready Break. It's getting late, I'm very tired, but I thought I'd do this while I had the idea of watching what I did and the other things I'd learned. I thought I'd do it now while it's fresh. So I've put 4 Ready Break adverts I collected, which I remember. Well, not all of them, but most of them. So this is not about the product, and so there's no intention to advertise. There's no intention to slam the product. I'm just looking at the imagery, and what I am talking about might not necessarily be what they intend. So I'm looking at a subliminal influence, if you like, coming through creativity, when that bias is towards the wrong thing. Because you can't blame these companies. You could blame them if they were putting poison in the oats, but they're not as far as I'm aware. And it would be regulated, there'd be somebody watching it, and that wouldn't profit anybody. Okay, you could argue they could snip it in a little bit at a time, and you could fall apart thinking about all the quantumness of life. I'm just talking about the imagery. This is nothing, no conspiracy. I'm just talking about observation. Because you can watch things and I've watched so many of these subliminal people trying to describe, and you got to, well, do they know what they're talking about? This just sounds like, and then you understand what that person is saying once you get it. It's just they're expressing it in their own way, their own experience, and all these experiences are good because they're sharing something, they're sharing their concerns, and you can pick all of these up off the table. This is how I've learned to understand these things and put the pieces together. I was shattered in pieces, so I went looking for little pieces here and there, and threw some pieces away, kept some bits. There's that wonderful saying, there's always a bit of gold in a fleck of gold in a bucket of sand, or a little gem in a whole horrible experience that you didn't like that experience, you didn't wish to go through it, but when you look back in hindsight, you're all the better for it, and you're grateful for that experience. I'm not saying you're grateful for going through it like a sadist. You justify it's right to put somebody through that experience for their benefit, unless they totally understand what they're committing themselves to. They can do that. If they want to climb a mountain, in shorts and flip-flops, it's a challenge. Snowy mountain, the only person you'd be concerned about is someone in there in flip-flops and shorts, but you couldn't stop them. You could warn them of the dangers, but you couldn't stop that person attempting the challenge. So you'd have to know your own limitations. So get back to this Ready Break, the subliminal, regarding Ready Break, what was shown into our homes. What are we looking at? The whole thing of advertising, or what you. I'm going to call out some things that I don't know if you've seen that film They Live, and it breaks it down what all the subliminal desires are behind the, and they've put a conspiracy at the top. There's like this conspiracy at the top. The conspiracy is our desires, what we choose, and it feeds itself. And yes, anyone can sit on top of the conspiracy and take advantage of it and spin the wheel. And there's lots of people taking advantage of it and spinning the wheel, for their own ends. There's a lot of people doing good. You just can't pin it down. You can't point the finger anywhere. You have to take responsibility for yourself. Because you think of these products as just, the general populations are, let's say, unrealistically, they're all, they're like a quiet community, like is it the Quakers? Or I know that, they have their inner problems. I'm talking of an ideal, not reality of a circumstance. But you think if you've got general society, the sort of average normal is, you go back, we've lost, our generation has lost what I grew up with, and that gulf has got bigger. I've seen it slide away like a landslide, and I see how the education system put me a phase out. I was a phase out, and I thought, I wonder if the generation in front of me was a phase out, so it's chopping it up a bit, it's chopping it up. Is that deliberate? Is that the devil? What's the devil? It's our choices. Is there a devil, or is it just our choices? Well, it's our choices and the devil, because the devil's there to tempt our choices. We make devil's choices. Somebody didn't go, why don't we put the devil at the bottom and we put God at the top? Let's make that up. No. How would men know that they were good or they were evil unless somebody told them? You can't make God up. Men take God and use it to their advantage, but God doesn't roll over. He is. So if your society starts to lust, right? These companies going, well, what do companies do? They're pitching to earn their families a living. They got children to feed, like everybody else, and so they're established. All right, they might have all drawn hands together, and they might be a bit dominant, but you can knock them off the perch by stop buying their products, right? And then they'd have to come down with you, and they may very well be the next people to come up with the next idea to take all your money. And fair play to these people, they're using their talents. But if the people on the ground are willing to throw their money at them, like slags, abandoned whores, or, and I'm not knocking any personal woman or female in that position, and that life choice, whether that was I'll wake up one morning, I'd really like to be a prostitute, or if they failed in their circumstances and their circumstances have failed them and they don't see any other option, or it may be a bit of both, I fancy that, I could do that, spend blokes' lives and be used and abused, that's all I am, why not make a living out of it and be on top? I'm not justifying it. It's not something I would do. I'd be more concerned about the person. I'd think, how could I treat a person like that? Close your eyes, you don't mean nothing. It's just it's just a bit of business. And I'm a bit of business, I'm a bit of toilet paper. I'm going to sit in the toilet and clean myself up and flush it down the toilet. And that's what you are, and that's what I am. And I'm going to pay for it. That money goes to the Queen. And so we get what we pay for. It's not the Queen's fault that her head's on money. It's our fault for allowing our choices to run amok. We've let go of the right choices, and people in Parliament, people in government are bound by our choices. So we are enemies to ourselves, as they are. They're human. They got families. They got feelings. They got hopes and aspirations. but they have fears, and they have, you imagine sitting up there and thinking, oh, blow it, why bother, and all the tossing and turning. Who can imagine what it's like up there, what it's like to grow in that world? And I don't know. It's an alien world to me. It's not like you can walk in there and say, oh, hello, how you doing? Or can we have a look round? Well, you probably could if you just got up and done it. There must be an avenue in there, or places to learn, find out and take part. You could become one if you really felt you could, if you really wanted to. It's something I would take up, but you could support people. You can be your own civil rights. You just as got much rights as anyone else. If you keep the law can't hurt you. You're free. People don't realise that because they don't believe the Bible. They don't believe God. You try and move the Bible. Try and move the King James Bible in our country. King James put it out of the letterbox of power, and he dropped it on the doorstep, and he goes, "Yeah, king, you're kings." And we had wicked people trying to own the Bible, the King James Holy Bible. And people mock it. People say, oh, King James is this, King James. And you get all this indifference. And I'm going to show you this on this advert, who these people are. Right, I'm not saying, you look at a shop window and you see Rome, you see England's crown, or you see Parliament. You don't see the individuals. You see building, and you see a face, and you see it can't be all shown live. You can't see everything when you walk around the shops in one go. So they have to put it in bits and then show it all. It's all one way. So if you just rely on that, the bits, and you're not in tune to the nitty bits, you're going to get a warped perception, and that's going to affect your thinking, your rationing, your reasoning, and that's going to give them power and other people in a stronger position who probably wouldn't spend as much time as what the general populations are doing, because they're busy working to keep things running in order. And there's that detachment in generation, and it causes indifference. So King James, the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church is a corporation, it's a business, it's an army, it's a law, it's a law unto itself. And I'm not saying the Catholic people are bad, there's been a lot of wicked history, and it isn't going to change. It's a wrong system. It's not the gospel. It's bad people who've robbed the gospel. They want to own the truth, like they want to own your thoughts, they want to own your decisions. You could dress it up in anything: Roman Catholicism, Mormonism, J-dubs. All these things are not what you see from the front. They're run by people, a little hand, little claw like that, perfect. Thank you, Lord, look at that. Tentacles amongst people. And they run it all, because the people in it are soft. They believe in the lie. So they believe if they get the little tentacle, you deserve it. You're believing in this. What did Jesus tell you? So it burns. Those black things hurt you. It's like walking into a prickle bush in your eyes. That's walking into a pyracantha bush, like what the Lord had wrapped around his head, and cruelly. You want to think about that. You want to think about him, because those sufferings those groaning. Have you ever been cut really hard, right? That's a little baby, a little tadpole of what the Lord suffered. Because he suffered everybody in every life. He wasn't just a man that people made up so they can control you. He created man and became man. And he willingly, to show his love for every single man, he didn't care what colour they were, what size or shape, how good or how bad. None of us are good. We've been created for good, by good, but we got bad in us. We need that bad out. How can you get that bad out if you haven't got it in to start with fully? You need the one who's got it fully. Who's got the one? Who's got it fully then? Have you got it? I got it. Have you got it? Has Allah got it? Who's this Allah? Who's this Muhammad? Who's this Buddha? Are these philosophies off the truth? Because there's only one truth. It can only be one light. It can only be one purpose. It can only be one infinite God. And we know that God because we've got his book. And we know we've got so many different people in different times that knew God. We know who God chose, and we know where God comes from. He's in heaven, and he said so, because he's God. He ain't going to lie, is he? Oh, let's pretend there isn't a God, and I'll pop my head up one day. No, he was a loving parent. He done things in order, and he cared. And then he chose a person, and he taught that person in a pattern of life that they could understand. He took them round a little route. He took them round the block. Yeah, go round the block. Oh yeah, I didn't realise a block had 4 sides. Now go down that road. Oh, that's straight. Yeah, go up there in a triangle. Oh yeah. Now go round in a circle. What do you think then? Oh yeah, I can see. Now go all crooked. Well, now look at the picture. What does it look like? Oh, it's all horrible. Triangle, circle. And that's all men do, is they make their own shapes and patterns with what God has provided them. They don't know how to put those shapes. Look at nature. It's not even hurting your face or hurting your eyes. And then you get the world, it's all jig-jag, zig-zag. It's like, if don't ever do this. And if you're a child, don't ever do drugs. Thinking they're cool, because the rest of the world does them, and they're all in the bath of it. Right, they got to get out of that bath, so don't get in it, right? And you imagine what these people do in the bath, and it isn't just drugs. They all hold hands, and you don't want to be part of that. They'll be all over you, and you'll be like them. You want to stay out of it. Look for some wholesome things to do. And if people don't like it and taunt you, they're weak. Because they're all clinging, holding hands together in like a little puddle. They have to, I used to see this when I grew up. They used to like loads of them, a flock in the bench, and there's a big iniquitous one they all looked up to and worshipped, like the fawns. Ooh, top cat. Ooh, who raises up these top cats and fonses? Little cells to milk you like Fagin, and then you have the Oliver Twist. And you're artful dodger, alright mate. And you got a little weak muppet Oliver, but he's really sweet and he's humble and he's upright. But he's gentle. And the Artful Dodger and Fagin, they're like, you think those are just characters like a thesis and the antithesis, the opposites opposing, and then you got the kingpin in the middle, holding those little 2 out. There's a cell, and you go to the little 2 boys, go and recruit loads of people, but we won't tell them we're like controlling it. We're just running it with a cell, right? This is what Islam is about. I've seen these people and they get loads of following around. They're telling, bragging, they're like big egos. And I overhear conversations like both. Oh, we killed, and I think you're joking, aren't you? All these things Muslims have done, killed that, and they've got all these young grooming. It's a groom. I'm not saying they deliberately go out to groom, but this is what these. It's not only Islam. It's anything. And it's allowed, and your kid's going to be sucked to these iniquitous. Whether it's a good one. But those good ones are robbing you. What was that Scoutmaster Baden Powell? Right, you can pick so many good things in that, and he'd done so many good, and he did. And you could take that example, and you could say, well, what did those young men learn? Did they learn how to pick locks and break into homes? And did they learn how to swindle people? No, it's the Scouts, wasn't it? Alright, it may have become corrupt, but let's look at the man's heart. I don't know, I've never read the story, I just know a little bit. I know a little bit about the Scouts, I know where those principles come from. They're upright, they're good. They provide, they help you to help yourself. They give you increase. They're goodness from God, from Jesus Christ. And He's your Lord. And He's giving you it free. And it's like you're saying, I don't want it. So the world's going to say, well, this is what you're going to get then. So you're torn between. We're all torn between the two. I'm torn between the two on a daily basis. I'm not perfect. I'm no real different. It's just that I know I've been made whole by Him, not by myself. I'm still that same broken bit. You think of like a shattered goldfish bowl. Little goldfish swimming around, and then you shatter it on the floor and crunch all the pieces, and the fish is flapping on the floor. Slap it about a bit, poor little fish. Knock it senseless. Oh, it's in shock. Alright, knock it senseless. Let's get a new bowl, needs a new bowl. Then you pick the little fish up, and then so it's taken from one hand, and then another hand provides a whole bowl back, complete, picks up the pieces of that bowl, puts it in a little bag, returns the goldfish, replaces the water. So you're